Chapter 3 Basics of Electricity, Part 1. What law describes the most fundamental or basic relationships in an electrical circuit? Ohm's law. What are the three elements of Ohm's law? Voltage, current, and resistance. How would you write Ohm's law as an equation? E equals I times R, or R equals E divided by I, or I equals E divided by R, where E is voltage, I is current, and R is resistance. If the resistance in a DC circuit remains the same, but the voltage doubles, what happens to the amount of current flowing in the circuit? It also doubles. In DC circuits, what unit measures power? Watts. What three elements are required to form an electrical circuit? A source of electrical energy, a load or resistance to use the electrical energy, and wires or conductors to connect the source to the load. DC circuits can take one of three forms or types. What are they? Series, parallel, or complex, also known as series parallel. A 24-volt lead acid battery has how many cells? 12 cells with approximately 2 volts each. A fully charged lead acid battery has a specific gravity that varies between what two values? 1.275 and 1.3. You must apply a correction to the specific gravity reading of the electrolyte of a lead acid battery when the temperature is outside of what two values? Whenever the temperature is less than 70 degrees Fahrenheit or greater than 90 degrees Fahrenheit. What is the reason for having separate facilities for storing and servicing nickel cadmium and lead acid batteries? The electrolyte in the two types of batteries is chemically opposite, and the fumes from one type can contaminate the electrolyte of the other type. The state of charge of a nickel cadmium battery cannot be determined by measuring the specific gravity of the electrolyte. For what reason? There is no significant change in the specific gravity of the electrolyte as the battery is charged or discharged. What is the principal advantage of AC current over DC current? Power can be transmitted over long distances more effectively and with smaller wires because the voltage can easily be increased or decreased by a transformer. What are the three causes of opposition to current flow in an AC circuit? Resistance, inductive reactance, and capacitive reactance. Define inductance. An induced voltage, which is opposite in direction to the applied voltage. What component creates capacitance in AC circuits? Capacitors. How does a capacitor store electricity? The energy is stored in the form of an electrostatic charge or field that exists between two conductors separated by an insulator. What property of an AC circuit is defined by the term impedance? The total opposition to current flow. What are two reasons that might cause a nickel cadmium battery to fail to deliver its rated capacity? Faulty cells or cell imbalance. What electrical values are measured by a typical multimeter? Voltage, current, and resistance. What are the five sources of electrical energy? Magnetism, chemical energy, light, heat, and pressure. What four things affect the resistance of an electrical conductor? The material, cross sectional area, the length, and the temperature. How can you tell the resistance of a composition resistor? By a series of colored bands around one end of the resistor. What is the purpose of a capacitor? To store electrical energy in electrostatic fields. What is the basic unit of capacitance? The farad. Why should electrolytic capacitors not be used in an AC circuit? They are polarized. An electrolytic capacitor will pass current of one polarity, but will block current of the opposite polarity. What is meant by inductance? The ability to store electrical energy in electromagnetic fields. What is the basic unit of inductance? The Henry. What happens to the current in a DC current if the voltage is increased but the resistance remains the same? The current also increases. What instrument is used to measure the specific gravity of the electrolyte in a lead acid battery? A hydrometer. What part of an amp is a milliamp? 1,000th or 0.001. What is the relationship between mechanical and electrical power? 1 horsepower equals 746 watts. What units is apparent power expressed in? Volt amps. What units is reactive power expressed in? volt amps reactive, VAR, or kilovolt amps reactive, kVAR. To measure voltage, is a voltmeter placed in a series or parallel with the source of voltage? In parallel. What is electrical current? The flow of electrons in a circuit. To measure current through a component, is an ammeter placed in parallel or in series with the component? In series. What two things happen when current flows through a conductor? Heat is generated, and a magnetic field surrounds the conductor. What is meant by resistance in an electrical circuit? The opposition to the flow of electrons. What instrument is used to measure continuity in an electrical circuit? An ohm meter. When measuring resistance of a component with an ohm meter, should the circuit be energized? No. What happens to the current in a conductor if the length of the conductor is doubled with all other parameters unchanged? It would decrease to one half. How much current flows through each of three resistors connected in a series if the total current is 3 amps? 3 amps. What is the total resistance of three 12-ohm resistors connected in series? 36 ohms. You multiply the number of resistors by the resistance in a series. What is the total resistance of three 12-ohm resistors connected in parallel? 4 ohms, because you divide the resistance by the number of resistors in parallel. What is meant by the capacity rating of a lead-acid battery? The number of hours a battery can supply a given current flow. In what units is battery capacity expressed? Ampere hours. What electrolyte is used in a lead-acid battery? Sulfuric acid and water. What is the electrolyte used in a nickel-cadmium battery? Potassium hydroxide and water. What is thermal runaway? An uncontrollable rise in battery temperature that can destroy the battery. What is meant by reactive power in an AC circuit? The power consumed in the inductive and capacitive reactance in an AC circuit. Reactive power is also called wattless power. What is meant by power factor in an AC circuit? The ratio of true power to apparent power. It is also the ratio of circuit resistance to circuit impedance. How much current flows through each of three equal resistors connected in parallel if the total current is 3 amps? 1 amp. Does the specific gravity of the electrolyte in a lead acid battery increase or decrease as the battery becomes discharged? It decreases. Why is the closed circuit voltage of a lead acid battery lower than its open circuit voltage? Voltage is dropped across the internal resistance of the battery. What gases are released when a lead acid battery is being charged? Hydrogen and oxygen. Is the electrolyte level of a nickel cadmium battery lowest when the battery is fully charged or fully discharged? Fully discharged. How may thermal runaway be prevented? By carefully monitoring the temperature of the cells and controlling the charging current to prevent an excess of current flowing into the battery. How is it possible to know when a nickel cadmium battery is fully charged? Completely discharge the battery and give it a constant current charge to 140% of its ampere hour capacity. What is a transformer and how does it work? A transformer is a device that changes electrical energy in an alternating circuit or AC circuit of a given voltage into electrical energy at a different voltage level. It consists of two coils that are not electrically connected but arranged so that the magnetic field surrounding one coil cuts through the other coil. What is meant by continuity in an electrical circuit? The circuit is continuous or complete when electrons can flow from one terminal of the power source to the other. What is the basic function of a switch? Switches control the current flow in most aircraft electrical circuits. What is a relay? A relay is simply an electromechanical switch where a small amount of current can control a large amount of current. What is the function of a current limiter? A current limiter is a type of heavy duty fuse, commonly with ratings of 30 amps or greater. They are often used to protect a section of an electrical system, such as a single electrical bus. What materials are fixed resistors made of? The most common fixed resistors are made of a carbon composition. Other types of fixed resistors include carbon film, metal oxide, metal film, and metal glaze. Wire wound resistors are typically used to control large amounts of current and have high power ratings. What are the two main types of variable resistors? The two main types of variable resistors are rheostat and the potentiometer. Explain the basic concept of digital logic. Transistors are used in digital electronics to construct circuits that act as digital logic gates. The purpose and task of a device is achieved by manipulating electric signals through the logic gates. Thousands and even millions of tiny transistors can be placed on a chip to create the digital logic landscape through which a component's signals are processed. What is RAM? Random access memory that is used for temporary storage in a computer system. What is ROM? Read only memory is a type of non volatile memory in a computer that is not lost when power to the computer is lost. What is NVRAM? Non volatile random access memory is random access memory that is retained even when power is lost. What are logic gates? Logic gates provide a set output signal based on one or more input signals. The input signal is either voltage, referred to as true, logic 1, or yes, or no voltage, referred to as false, logic 0, or no. The basic logic gates are or, and not. What is an inverter when used as a logic function? When used as a logic function, inverters convert a 1 to a 0 or a 0 to a 1. What is a rectifier when used in a logic function? A rectifier converts AC voltage to DC voltage. What is a flip-flop when used in a logic function? An electrical circuit that can store a single binary signal, either a 1 or a 0. The binary state can change based on the input signal.